The Chiefs' division rivals have begun filling in key pieces of their coaching staff, with the Raiders announcing a head coach hire and the Chargers going through prospects. Meanwhile, the Chiefs are making some roster moves themselves as they also prepare for a divisional battle against a great opponent in the Buffalo Bills. So let's take a look at the key injuries as I preview this game, talk about some of these roster moves KC made, getting familiar with a couple of newly signed ones, and more. But first, how about those? All right, first up in some AFC West news, it's worth noting the Chargers interviewed Mike Vrabel yesterday, which is the first known interview for the 48-year-old coach that was recently let go by the Titans. And while I think Vrabel is a great coach and would probably do a nice job there in LA, part of me wonders if the Chargers should be looking for an offensive-minded head coach instead to better take advantage of who they have at quarterback. They are also interviewing Cowboys DC Dan Quinn, I think today, and have already interviewed Bills DC Leslie Frazier, current Wolverines head coach Jim Harbaugh, with more on the way. But Harbaugh is the only one on this list so far, I believe, that's an offensive-minded guy, and I share this AFC West news about LA today mainly for this reason. While the Chargers may be better off hiring an offensive-minded guy, I'd love for them to hire another defensive-minded guy like Staley, because the NFL has clearly been shifting to more offensive-minded coaches and finding more success that way. The last 4 Super Bowl matchups have exclusively been led by offensive-minded coaches, and even in this year's playoffs, 9 of the 14 teams that made it had head coaches that are offensive-minded. On top of that, since February of 2020, 14 of the last 22 head coaching hires have had offensive backgrounds. So the evidence is clear. Teams have less chances of succeeding with a defensive-minded head coach these days, at least on average. And while any of these defensive guys will probably be a better fit for the team than Brandon Staley, I love the idea of the Chargers continuing to charger and wish them the least amount of success possible for years to come. Another team I hope never again finds real success, something they haven't really been able to accomplish in over 20 years as it is, would be the Las Vegas Raiders, who actually, ironically, just hired a defensive-minded coach today, although I think he was a pretty good fit for them, all things considered. The new guy is not so new, really. It's Antonio Pierce. He was the interim coach after Josh McDumdum was fired earlier this season, and this was announced today by Adam Schefter and everybody else, with a deal being finalized for Pierce to become the full-time head coach in Las Vegas. The players instantly rallied around him when he took over, and even big-name guys on the team like Max Crosby and Devontae Adams went to bat for him after the season was over to be the next head coach. Crosby even went as far as to say on his podcast that he would have to, quote, consider everything, which could even include requesting a trade if Pierce was not owner Mark Davis's choice for a head coach. Pierce is a former player himself, playing 9 years as a linebacker and making 1 Pro Bowl back in 2006 with the Giants, helping them win Super Bowl 42 over the Patriots. So it's no wonder why he's able to connect with the locker room and earn the trust of the players. And while he's only been coaching with the Raiders since 2022, it certainly helps that he led them to a 5-4 record down the stretch, beating the Chargers 63-21 and even beating the Chiefs in that absolutely miserable game on Christmas. Anyway, we aren't going back to the past, to that ugly loss. In fact, that's enough of this AFC West coaching circus. We need to now shift back to some winners, a team that actually gets things done when it matters in the playoffs. And what we need to talk about first is the Chiefs made a flurry of roster moves this week, and I wanted to quickly go over all those moves that were made and talk about some of the new players they signed. First, they designated wide receiver Sky Moore to return from IR, with his 21-day window opening up and allowing him to practice. However, he's listed as out on the injury report already for the Bills game, with Andy Reid noting today in his presser that Sky tweaked his knee during Thursday's practice and will not be playing on Sunday. Then they placed linebacker Cam Jones on IR this week due to the chest injury he sustained in the wild card win over the Dolphins. And with a roster spot opened up because of him being placed on IR, KC opted to sign another linebacker, Cole Christensen, from the practice squad to fill his spot. And Christensen will probably play a role on special teams. He's played 23 snaps for them this season. And also, Cam Jones had the 5th most special team snaps of anyone on the roster, so that's why I think Christensen's going to be there in Cam's shoes on special teams. Then, after Cole Christensen was elevated to the 53-man roster, that spot was filled by former Jets safety Trey Dean, a UDFA out of Florida who spent the season on the Jets practice squad, then turned down a futures deal from the Jets to sign with a playoff contender, and lo and behold, he's now a Chief. And while the 6'2", 200-pound safety hasn't played an NFL snap yet, in his 40 games with the Gators in college, he racked up 255 tackles, 13.5 tackles for loss, 5 sacks, 4 INTs, and 24 PBUs. And while he could potentially, maybe at some point during the Chiefs postseason run, see some snaps, with him being so new, I personally wouldn't bank on it. KC also signed 2 players to reserve futures deals, a cornerback and an intriguing, very speedy wide receiver. But before we get into that, with the divisional matchup between the Chiefs and Bills nearly upon us, Chiefs Bids wants to give away a signed Patrick Mahomes jersey, as well as potentially even this rare Mahomes signed custom USA full-size SpeedFlex helmet, and we're going to need your help. But before I get to that, Chiefs Bids is available in the bids portion of the official Chiefs app and has lots of awesome signed memorabilia from former and current Chiefs players that you can bid on and gets updated all the time. Right now, they have signed pieces from players like this dual signed helmet, Rashee Rice and Richie James. Then there's Joe Montana, Dwayne Bowe, Trent Green, Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes, and the list goes on. They also have a bunch of game-worn items from players like Jalen Watson, Brian Cook, Charles Omenihu, and even this Mahomes signed game-used ball from the Germany game, which is fire. So make sure to check out the app ASAP. And as far as how to potentially win a signed Patrick Mahomes jersey, you're going to need to head over to Chiefs Bids private Facebook group, join it, and once approved, head to the featured post that includes this photo, comment HBT Chiefs, and tag 3 friends in it who may not be a part of the group and invite them to join. That's it. I'll select the winner on Monday, January 22nd using a random generator. And if we are able to get the group to 10,000 members by this Sunday, game day, Chiefs Bids will also give away this freaking awesome Mahomes signed custom USA SpeedFlex helmet to a random person on the same exact post. You don't have to do anything extra. Just comment HBT Chiefs and tag 3 friends. Invite them to join the group for your chance to win the signed Patrick Mahomes jersey. And if the group hits 10,000 members by game day, another person from the comments will randomly be selected to win this signed Mahomes helmet. Okay, next up, the Chiefs also signed 2 players to reserve futures deals this week, which means they cannot play in the postseason run, but they also do not count against the team's salary cap or roster count until the beginning of the new league year in March. Wide receiver Justin Watson, for example, was a future signing for the Chiefs a couple years ago, so you can't rule any of these guys out as future contributors just yet. First up is wide receiver Shi Smith, a former 6th round pick by the Panthers in the 2021 NFL Draft. He played ball at South Carolina from 2017 to 2020, where he had himself a nice career, totaling 174 catches for 2,200 yards and 13 touchdowns. The biggest knock on him coming out of college, though, was his size. He's just 5'10" and 190 pounds. However, his speed and athleticism helped make up for that as he ran a 4.4340 at his pro day, which was the 4th fastest time of any receiver in his draft class. Shi played a minimal role in his first 2 years with Carolina, tallying just 28 catches for 400 yards and 2 touchdowns across the 2021 and 2022 seasons. He then failed to make their 53-man roster this year and spent the season on the Titans practice squad, but once his practice squad contract expired, he was free to sign with any team, and he definitely chose a much better one. And while it's not clear if he will even make the roster next season, it can't hurt to bring in a young guy with some serious speed and see what happens with him this offseason, especially with this coaching staff. The next player signed to a futures deal was cornerback Kelvin Joseph, and this is an interesting signing for a couple of reasons. First, he was a 2nd round draft pick out of LSU just 2 seasons ago, taken 44th overall by the Cowboys, and while he's bounced around the past year, it's clear that teams still think there's some upside there as he was one of the highest ranked defensive backs in the 2021 draft. However, his career has been plagued with a lot of bad luck, for a lack of a better term. He contracted COVID in the offseason his rookie year, then wound up on injured reserve during preseason due to a groin injury, which kept him from getting valuable reps as a rookie. He came back during the season and made 10 appearances, but was largely contributing on special teams. Then, going into his 2nd season, you guys may remember his name being in the news because he was actually named as a person of interest in an investigation of a fatal shooting, being in a vehicle in which fatal shots were fired at somebody else, but he didn't actually shoot the gun. He was then cleared a few months later and not charged with any crime, appearing in 16 games that year. By the end of it, though, he was almost exclusively a special teams player, playing the 3rd most special teams snaps of anyone, which isn't really great for a high draft pick. The Cowboys then traded him to Miami, where he appeared in 4 games this season before being waived and signed to the Seahawks practice squad, which is where he's been until his contract expired a couple weeks ago and is now a Kansas City Chief. Who really knows if he'll ever see the field in a Chiefs jersey, but if anyone can pull the best out of this guy, it's going to be Steve Spagnuolo and defensive backs coach Dave Merritt, two of the best in the business. All right, here's a question for you. How has Mahomes performed so far in the divisional round of the playoffs throughout his career? Well, checking the facts, he's done pretty decent. Overall, I would say, currently being 6-0 in the 2018 NFL season's playoffs. The Chiefs beat the Colts 31-13. Then in 2019, that was the insane game against the Texans where KC trailed at one point 24-0 and ended up winning 51-31. Then the 2020 game was helped by Chad Henne when Mahomes left due to a concussion in the Chiefs' 22-17 win over the Browns. 2021 was the infamous 13-2 game where the Chiefs beat Buffalo in that overtime thriller. Then the most recent game was against the Jags last season, where Mahomes and company were probably going to hang over 40 points on Jacksonville the way things were looking until Patrick's ankle got jacked. So there's the 6 divisional wins in a row, with the biggest question being, will Kansas City move to 7-0 after this Sunday? Let me know your thoughts on that in the comments down below. I will say this, many are not predicting the Chiefs to win, that's for sure. You can see on this NFL preview graphic here that 6 out of 10 are rolling with the Bills, albeit all of these predictions are one-score games. Then 3 out of the 4 of the very high IQ cast members of Good Morning Football have the Bills winning. And honestly, this game very well could go either way. I have the Chiefs winning 24-21, with the main way KC pulls out this W is with their defense doing what they've done pretty much all year long, and that is shutting down opposing teams' offenses. And then for the offense, they've just got to play a clean game and then convert a couple more red zone trips into touchdowns than they have been able to do in the previous couple of games. In their last matchup, the Chiefs defense held the Bills to 20, so this isn't some wild hot take here. I've already seen comments saying I am delusional for thinking the Chiefs even have a chance to win this game, but I don't really understand how a KC win is that far-fetched. Especially in a close game, considering the last 6 matchups between these two have gone 3-3. Chiefs won 3, Bills won 3, with the final score of these games all being within 7 points outside of 2 games, which was when the Chiefs beat the Bills 26-17 back in 2020, and then when the Bills beat KC 38-20 back in 2021. Outside of that, all these games have basically been down to the wire, or at least pretty close to that. Plus, when you look at the fact that the Bills have had 2 less days to prep and rest and are the more banged up team by far, those are a couple of things tipping in Kansas City's favor. Sure, Josh Allen and company are a great team, will be playing at home and have won 6 games in a row. They also boast a top 10 defense, which you could maybe try and argue against now because of all their injuries, but they also have a top 10 offense in multiple categories. Josh Allen has also had a pretty good season. He has 17 more total touchdowns than Mahomes. 15 of them are rushing touchdowns, pretty impressive. And this year even has a slightly better pressure to sack percentage, ranking first in the league with Mahomes close behind at number 2. So Allen is definitely a dual threat problem that Spags and company have to take seriously. You got to mix up the pressure, blitz from all kinds of different directions, show blitz on some plays and back out completely. Just keep this man guessing and on his toes. Then if a Chiefs defender does get a chance on Allen via a blitz or whatever, don't lose containment on this man, or he could very well burn you for a first down or some sort of crazy off the script play. Josh Allen is a rather up and down QB, though, having thrown the second most INTs with 18, including 1 against Kansas City back in December. So hopefully the Chiefs defense is able to force at least 1 costly turnover in this matchup as well. They also need to stop Buffalo's run game. Not only are the Bills running the ball a lot more lately in the back half of the season with some nice success, but stopping the run has been an issue for Kansas City at times, being 18th in the league at rushing yards allowed per game, while the Bills offense have the 7th highest average. James Cook is a talented running back that can also catch well out of the backfield, which was clearly evident in their last matchup in December when Cook caught 5 passes for 83 yards and a touchdown. He was actually their leading receiver that day, with Stephon Diggs notably having his worst performance of the entire season. Thank you, L'Jarius Sneed. However, the Chiefs did not have Drew Tranquill that day, and this was also Nick Bolton's first game back from IR. This go-around, the Chiefs have Bolton and Tranquill, and with Tranquill being a converted safety, he should be a definite asset out there in coverage. Another thing KC will need to try and keep tabs on is going to be both of their tight ends, Dawson Knox and especially the rookie Dalton Kincaid. Kincaid had the third most receiving yards on the team in the regular season, only behind Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs. But just last week in the Steelers game, Kincaid led the team in receiving yards, and both tight ends ended up scoring a touchdown. The reason why you need to pay close attention to these tight ends is because the Bills have already ruled Gabe Davis out due to his knee injury, and then this week, Stephon Diggs popped up on the injury report Thursday, not participating due to a foot injury he sustained in what they said was the Steelers game, then flared up later this week. Then he was limited in today's practice. But Sean 911 McDermott said he's not concerned about his status for Sunday being in jeopardy. And upon the release of the Bills injury report, Diggs is indeed playing, having no injury designation. But the question is, even if Diggs plays, how close to 100% will he really be? Another receiver they will need to keep tabs on is Khalil Shakir, who's a guy that since week 8 has had a little bit more production than even Stephon Diggs. A couple of touchdowns compared to Diggs' 0, and also had a hard-fought score last week against the Steelers. The Chiefs' defense is relatively healthy, though, again, which helps. With defensive tackle Derek Nottie, the only defensive player being ruled out for this game, Andy Reid said Mike Pennell will most likely get the practice squad call-up with Nottie out, but the rest of the defense looks good to go. On the other side of the ball, the Bills are honestly pretty freaking banged up. Safety Taylor Rapp, cornerback Christian Benford, and linebacker Balin Spector have already been ruled out, as has Gabe Davis, but I already talked about that. Rapp played some decent snaps for the team in the middle of the season. Cornerback Christian Benford has been heavily leaned on all season, playing in 100% of snaps in most games. Linebacker Balin Spector has only played 21 defensive snaps, I believe, for the team, but most of those came from the last couple of weeks due to injuries, and now this man is banged up. And with third-year linebacker Terrell Bernard not practicing all week due to an ankle injury, listed as questionable to play, though, Buffalo's linebacker room is definitely going through it right now. Because of that, the Chiefs should look to take advantage of the middle of the field. Feed Rice, feed Kelsey when you're able, when he's not doubled or tripled, and find another to step up and exploit this fact. Maybe Noah Gray, with Kelsey and Rice going to be seeing plenty of attention from Buffalo. Maybe Gray is one they could lean on a bit more. If not Gray, then who? Nobody outside of Rice, Kelsey, and McColl even saw more than 3 targets last week, with only Justin Watson, Rashee Rice, and Travis Kelce catching more than 1 pass. They will need to find somebody else to throw to at times, and with Kadarius Toney being listed as questionable, as well as Justin Ross, I'm not sure it's going to be either one of them at the moment. Even if they can play, Toney only has 169 yards and 1 score on the entire season in 13 games played, and has missed the last 5 in a row. If he doesn't play Sunday, then Justin Ross only has 53 yards on the season. So again, not counting on much from either of them. Then there's Sky Moore, but he's already been ruled out of this game, even though his 21-day window to return from IR opened up this week. So no go on Sky. So maybe MVS can step up. That would certainly be ideal. They're paying him enough as it is. Honestly, though, I do not care if it's MVS, Justin Watson, Noah Gray, McCole Hardman, but one of those guys, please step up, and especially the deep threat guys, Watson, McColl, or MVS. If any of them can get separation early and Mahomes finds success on even a couple of deep balls, like McColl was close to doing last week, that should help keep the Bills' secondary honest and take some pressure off of Kelce and Rice in the middle of the field. Then, of course, the O-line needs to hold strong and protect Mahomes. The rookie Wanye Morris was unable to clear concussion protocol and is officially ruled out of the game. So the hope is the veteran Donovan Smith stays healthy and is able to play the entirety of the game like he did last week. This D-line is clearly better than the Dolphins, so they need to do all they can to keep Mahomes protected in the pocket. It's also worth noting that Donovan Smith did not play in the last Chiefs and Bills matchup, as he was out with that neck stinger. And on the subject of pressures and potential sacks from the Bills' D-line, I think Mahomes will use his legs more in this game to get out of trouble when needed, which is something he does a bit more willingly, especially in playoff games. In fact, during the last matchup against the Bills in the 13-second game, Mahomes had 7 carries for 69 yards and a touchdown, so do not sleep on him scrambling more regularly in this game. As far as the Chiefs' run game is concerned, this is obviously something they should hope to establish early on as well, which that, combined with even a little bit of deep ball success, should also help Kelce and Rice in the middle of the field. This is something I believe they can indeed get going, considering back in their December matchup, Isaiah Pacheco did not even play as he was recovering from that minor shoulder cleanup. He's an absolute force to be reckoned with, racking up 210 total rushing yards over the last 2 games that he's played in, averaging 5.45 yards per carry. The last 2 games he played in was Week 17 against the Bengals and the wild card round against Miami. So hopefully this will help allow KC to fare decently well against Buffalo's secondary that, again, is not 100% healthy. Remember, earlier this season, cornerback Tre'Davious White was placed on IR. Cornerback Christian Benford is already ruled out. So is safety Taylor Rapp, with Taron Johnson questionable due to being in concussion protocol, though he is trending upwards. Then cornerback Rasul Douglas did not play last week, dealing with a knee issue, listed as questionable to play this week, though it seems he is trending towards playing. The question is, will he be 100%? Not sure, but if the Chiefs offense isn't able to take advantage of these injuries in this game, from the linebackers to the secondary, then it's going to put a ton of strain on the Chiefs defense. With all that being said, though, I'm confident in Spags and Andy Reid and think they are well-seasoned coaches, especially in the playoffs, and they have a good chance of pulling out this win, which is why I'm rolling with the Chiefs, getting it done in Buffalo, 24-21. The Chiefs are more healthy. They've had more rest and barely lost to Buffalo roughly a month ago. In fact, they would have pulled ahead by 4 points with about a minute left on the clock had Kadarius Toney not lined up off sides. However, I'm sure it's going to be a hard-fought game, down to the wire, very close, very stressful, etc. But in the end, I like the odds of Mahomes and company being able to get this done in a hostile environment on the road. Best of luck to the Bills, though. Much respect to Bills Mafia, and may the better team prevail for this one. Make sure to let me know your thoughts on this game in the comments down below. And until next time, let's go. Let's freaking go. How about those